Madam, are we ready? Okay. So I will call this evening's regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting to order. And I will note that all commissioners are here with the exception of Commissioner who is on a planned absence. It's in Europe somewhere. And we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Verplaine.
Would you all please rise? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. And before we get too far, we'll start with public comments. This is the part of the meeting where anybody who wishes to speak on something that is not on our agenda tonight has an opportunity to do so. We don't have any requests. Is there anybody out there who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we will move into our presentation items.
Our first presentation item this evening is the Public Works Quarterly Update, and Angel Fortes is here with that.
Good evening, Chairman Brower and members of the Planning Commission. The Public Works Department Quarterly Update for January 2015 and through March 2015 is in your included in your packet. I'd like to bring 3 projects to your attention. First project is the signalized intersection at Rancho Parkway and the Sports Park. We just recently completed the installation of that signalized intersection in March. Second project is the ADA Phase 7 access ramp project. We awarded the contract in March, and the contractor started this month, where he's going to be reconstructing about 30 access ramps, on those ramps being on Lake Forest Drive between Pittsburgh and Regency. And there's also some ramps on Regency, Osterman, Skylark, and Dimension. And the construction will be completed in May. The third project is the Saddleback Ranch Road traffic calming project. This will be currently out to bid for the traffic calming improvements on Saddleback Ranch Road, which would be in front of Portola Hills Elementary School. We're going to be opening bids next week with construction starting in June, which would be during the summer school break. School break. The construction estimate is about $1 million for that. This is my update, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Our next item is a presentation as well, the Code Enforcement Activity Report for the first quarter, and Lou Kirk is here this evening.
Thank you, Gail. Good evening, Chair Brown of the Commission. This is our first quarter report for 2015. During the first quarter, we opened 147 new cases, added those to the existing 173 left over from and we closed 119 cases during the same period. This leaves us with 201 active cases as of the beginning of the second quarter. As you're no doubt familiar with by now, I've included several reference materials here, and rather than go into those in great detail, I would rather give you the opportunity to ask any questions you may have. This concludes my report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. Any questions? Well, I have one. So, I'm curious on we have the Graffiti Hotline. I'm assuming those fall under your purview. I know you don't personally handle them, but when we get those complaints, is it something that's tracked in what we see here? Or?
It's tracked through the Sheriff's Department and through the Public Works Department. And they're often handled by Public Works unless they're on private property and we can't get any sort of cooperation in removing it, then it would become a code enforcement issue.
Okay. I wasn't sure where that was handled, but the corner of Cherry and Geronimo, currently clean, but it's 2 or 3 times a year that we're calling and having somebody come out and clean it. And I'm just curious, when they do that, are they taking pictures? Are they keeping a database if it's the same tag showing up, so that we can kind of watch for patterns and try to identify people?
Yes, we do. When the call comes in, we usually ask for location, and either they send us a photo of the graffiti through email, or one of our staff people takes a picture of the graffiti. We then notify the graffiti contractor to clean it up, and he takes pictures of the graffiti before and after. And also, it's documented with the Sheriff's Department, too.
All right, I just was concerned because I know that particular intersection seems to be getting hit, like I said, 3 or 4 times a year, and didn't know if we had a game plan for dealing with problem areas along those lines. So, thank you. Actually, that will bring us to our consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any need for discussion? All right, let's vote. And if I remember right, he was absent last time, so he's abstaining. So, all right, the motion carries. And this brings us to our public hearing.
Our first public hearing development for A4 Volleyball Club Youth Sports Training Facility, and Ron Santos has a report this evening.
Good evening, Chairman Brower, members of the Planning Commission. This item is a request to establish a 33,000 square foot sports training facility known as A4 Volleyball Club. The use is proposed in a tenant space that comprises approximately of an existing light industrial building located at 74 Icon, which is in the northeasterly part of the city. The site includes a total of 3 freestanding light industrial buildings totaling just over 200,000 square feet. The 3 buildings share 542 parking spaces and are occupied by warehouse, office, and light manufacturing uses. The A4 Club would provide team and individual volleyball instruction, practice space, and summer training camps for members aged 7 through 18. Planned improvements to the space include installation of 5 volleyball courts, 6 portable bleachers, a 2,000 square foot weight room, several offices, a merchandise sales area, and a small lounge. No changes to the building exterior or parking lot are proposed. Hours of operation would generally be from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. weekdays and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekends between September and June, and from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday in July and August. The facility would be open to members only. During the September to June volleyball season, A4 would conduct 3 practice sessions each evening, spaced 15 minutes apart in order to avoid any overlapping parking. Each session would accommodate up to 60 players, 10 coaches, 30 spectators, and 15 members in the weight room, plus an additional 4 facility staff. During the July through August summer camps and clinics, their operations would expand to a maximum of 75 players at each of 2 half-day sessions, followed by individualized sessions with up to 4 players, 1 coach, and 4 spectators per court between 4:30 and 8 p.m. The applicant has indicated that they will not hold tournaments at this facility. Consequently, the 134 total occupants during the 2-month summer sessions represents the peak intensity of the operations. Because the municipal code provides for the parking requirement for commercial recreation uses to be determined on a case-by-case basis, the applicant submitted a parking study that estimates the number of parking stalls needed. The study concluded that A4 would use approximately 67 of the site's 542 total parking stalls, based in part on an assumed average vehicle occupancy of 2.25 persons for players and spectators and 1 for coaches and staff. As shown in the graphic on page 7 of the staff report, the site provides 81 parking spaces immediately surrounding the building, which again is more than the estimated parking demand for the use. Accounting for the parking needs of the 3 other tenants on the property, the study determined that the total on-site parking demand at the peak intensity of the operations would be 397. This translates to a 78-space parking surplus on site. The parking study also recommends that A4 establish a one-way circulation route through the parking lot for parents that are dropping off children while remaining in their vehicle. The suggested route is depicted on the site plan and on the graphic on page 7 of the staff report. Using this route would minimize cross traffic and avoid the loading dock areas and of the other businesses on the site. Moreover, it will allow children to be dropped off near the facility entrance, away from any truck traffic. A4 Club members would be encouraged to follow this route as part of their member orientation. It should be noted that each of the existing tenants on the property were notified of the proposed use, and none have expressed any concerns or opposition. In fact, to date, we have not received any public comments on this item. Staff is recommending approval of the project based on the findings in the draft resolution that the use is consistent with the general plan and zoning, will not generate adverse parking or circulation impacts, and will generally be compatible with surrounding uses as outlined in the staff report. That concludes staff's presentation, and I could answer any questions you may have. The applicant's team is also in attendance this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Is there any questions for staff?
I just have one. In terms of this one-way parking route, how would we make sure that we have compliance with that? It seems to me like, based on the last situation we had like this, the traffic and the parking seems to be an issue, especially with children.
The proposed circulation route represents the most convenient route, by the way, because it establishes the drop-off right in front of the entrances, as I mentioned in the presentation. So it's likely that the members would be encouraged to follow that route just as a matter of convenience. But beyond that, as I mentioned, this is a member-only club. It's not like a gym where you can just show up and walk in to practice or that sort of thing. So the business owners would have a certain level of control over how those operations are occurring and their membership.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll open the public discussion portion of this item and ask if there's anybody who would like to speak.
I have John Cow, followed by Joaquin Acosta.
And I just ask that as you come up, you state your name and city of residence for the record. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Kao. I live in San Juan Capistrano.
And good evening. My name is Joaquin Acosta. I live in Irvine. We are both co-owners of A4 Volleyball Club. And we'd be happy to address any questions from the commission.
Perhaps, I don't know if Mr. Lund would like to have you address the question he asked Ron. I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'll ask you the same question I asked him. How would you plan to deal with young people being dropped off and make sure they're not loitering or they're not out in front of the traffic, or how would you deal with that?
I think Mr. Santos accurately addressed the question, but by experience, the group that we kind of cater to are typically, I ran a volleyball club for 3 years, T Street Volleyball Club, and usually it's a come in, come out. There's really no hanging out in the parking lot. Parents are extremely courteous. Never had issues with trash or any noise complaints in the parking lot. Kids they get from school, come to practice, and they get out. They've got homework, they've got projects, they've got final exams. So it's usually a get in, get out. So of course we can't force, but we would send emails out, and we'd encourage our members, strongly encourage them to follow these guidelines.
What age range of young people do you deal with?
So year one right now we have 8 teams, ranging from 12-year-olds 2 18-year-olds. So we have teams at the 13 and under, 14 under, 15 under, 16 and 18 and under. Next year, we envision we'll probably start getting 11, 12-year-olds. We added the 7-year-olds just because there is a creative new way of introducing the sport. I don't know if we'll be able to get that young, but typically at 10 they start playing volleyball.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your coming and meeting with us.
All right.
So this team that you currently are working with, the 12 through 18-year-olds, where do you practice today?
We practice out of a facility in down the street.
And how long have you been, is this the A4 club? Has it been in existence for
1 year.
1 year?
This is the first year.
Oh, pretty exciting then, huh?
Extremely.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm not a traffic engineer, but it looks to me like you've kind of figured out, I'm great at carpooling, so I have had a lot of experience, but it looks like you've figured out the best access. I was at the site and was curious as to how it was going to work, and it looks like it's the best in and out, and of course you just have to make sure that there's no moms like me who will say, oh, I'm a little late, I'm going to come in the other way, so good luck with that.
Yeah, I do have a just tagging into the parking, not necessarily the parking I'm fine with, but just the flow of the traffic. You're talking about 15-minute intervals between your training classes. Do you have any kind of data that might help us understand what percentage of the members of your club that are at one class would flow into the next class?
Oh, no, they don't. So so how we structure this is by time blocks. So there's practices. Say we start at 4 p.m.
Okay.
We'll take a group 4 to 5:30, and then from 5:30 to 5:45 we'll leave that open. At 5:45, 3 new teams come in. So these teams are done. They go home. So each team practices 2 to 3 times a week. So they've got their team practice. And they leave. So they're not. So it's not so much classes as much as you're with your team. You have a block and you're done.
Okay, so your business model has it designed so that they're only there for that specific time, and there's no incentive for them to stay beyond that point.
Absolutely not.
Cool. That was my question. Great. Thanks.
And I think Ron addressed it, and it's in the staff report, but I can't seem to find it at the moment. But your typical hours of operation start at 4?
Yeah.
Okay. And looking at the various exhibit letters with the different, your neighbors, basically, it seems like most of them have their hours 9 to 5. Some that run multiple shifts, their second shift starts at 2, so they're already going to be mid-shift by the time you're coming and going. So it seems like the flow of your neighbors will be pretty non-existent at the time that you're flowing. So between the combination of that and what you have mapped out, I think you're going to be sitting pretty. So I don't have any problems with it. Unlike, I don't do volleyball. I never had the talent for it as much as I loved it, and my kids are short, so it's probably not going to be in their immediate future. But my son plays baseball, and going to practices, even though we have time slots where you say this is our field from this time to this time, we don't have those overlaps. It's like you're chasing a team off to get your team on, and parking isn't there. So even just with 15 minutes, I think it's going to be, it will definitely serve you to have a gap there. So, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I do. I read in the report one of the comments that if necessary, you have already had some discussions with adjoining property owners for off-site overflow parking. Is there somewhat of I don't think there's any formal agreement, and I'm not looking for a formal agreement. It's more of a curiosity situation. That is an industrial park, and if we were to have an uptick in the demand for that space, and then your business, and we're optimistic and hopeful that your business is going to grow and prosper and expand to you at full capacity. That would be ideal for you. It would be ideal for the city, too. We're very pro-business in the city. What if you got to that point? Have you thought of a contingent plan beyond that contingent plan that may not be available to you at that point in time? Have you given any thought to that? So can you share that with us?
So the numbers that we laid out is we're pretty much operating at, if we get to that range, we're sitting really, really well. And we're operating within the parking slots allotted to us by the landlord. So we're actually underneath that number. So we're actually putting best case scenarios for us, which we're really optimistic and confident that we're going to get to. So these agreements in place in case we need them. I don't see the immediate need that we're going to need them. Do you want to elaborate a bit more?
We have written affirmation, I think it was 50 Icon, from the tenant from 50 Icon that was very supportive. And the other 70, 80, and 90 didn't have a problem with it. I think Mr. Santos' numbers in the parking study shows that it was all the slots and all the courts will be always full, and we're hoping we will get to that point, and it's probably going to take a couple of years to build up to that.
Right.
But to your point, he's got 8 teams this year, and 4 of them are going to be going to the Junior National Olympics, and 6 of them are in Gold Division in the Southern California Volleyball Association. So we expect the brand to develop. So I think the parking issue should be, we spent a lot of time on it.
Oh, we've seen a lot of parking scenarios and things like this, and this one is one that you're not on right at the edge to begin with. You've got a lot of leeway there. But taking into just consideration that there could come a time, I would
park in the iCloud.
They could park in the iCloud.
Commissioner Verplank, if I could add, the real limiting factor in this situation is the number of courts. And so if you have additional teams, you'll schedule more practices.
Right.
But every team needs a court, so you can't get more people at a given time. You can only expand your time out.
Okay. And since tournaments aren't going to be held there, this is strictly a practice facility. You can control that.
Yep.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
We would have to apply for another facility.
Well, we hope you grow so that you have to.
So I guess I will bring it back up to the commission at this point. Does anybody need further discussion or want to bring a motion? Or
I'd like to move we close the public hearing and bring it to a vote.
I think
To
we need
approve?
Okay, there we go. I think we need to actually finish that sentence.
I'll second that, and you gentlemen may sit.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any last-minute discussion? Okay, let's vote. And the motion is unanimous for approval. Thank you, gentlemen. Congratulations. We wish you the best of luck, and I would say welcome you to the city, but it sounds like you're already in the city. You're just moving to a better facility. So we're glad you're here, and we're glad you're growing. That will move us into our director's comments.
No, actually, we have one more item
Oh,
here.
I'm sorry.
And this is a zoning code amendment.
You are correct.
And Jennifer Mansour has a staff report regarding this item.
I thought she was just here to make the place look better.
Don't
Sorry,
forget
Jennifer.
about me. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This item is a city-initiated zoning code amendment related to non-residential use definitions and regulations. In 2012, the City Council adopted an ordinance amending the city zoning code and plan communities related to non-residential land uses. The ordinance created the land use matrix, which included a comprehensive list of potential non-residential uses and specifies whether the use is permitted, prohibited, or requires either a site development permit or use permit. The ordinance also included definitions for all of the listed uses. Overall, this land use matrix and the related definitions met the goals of the original ordinance and for the most part has been successfully used. However, with any substantial code update, staff has run into minor issues with the table and definitions. The purpose of this zoning code amendment is to resolve these minor issues. In your packet, you were provided with the draft ordinance, a redlined version of the amended code sections, which gets a little complicated because of all the changes, and a table specifying all the specific changes. Generally, these proposed changes included adding new uses and definitions and providing clarification and refinements to the land use matrix and related definitions. The code amendments also included a change to the industrial park zoning district in our Lake Forest planned community. Generally, this zoning district is in the southern part of the city, on the west side of Lake Forest Drive between Muirlands and Rockfield. Although the zoning district is called Industrial Park, the uses allowed by the original county zoning permitted a mixture of industrial, office, and commercial uses. In the 2012 ordinance, the Industrial Park zoning district was regulated by the I, or the industrial column of the matrix, similar to all the other industrial areas in our city. This inadvertently created some legal nonconforming uses in this district, such as Taco Bell, The Hat, and numerous service businesses that were located in this area. To remedy this situation, this proposed ordinance includes a provision to allow commercial uses back into the zoning district. Staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending the City Council approve this zoning amendment. That concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions about the zoning code amendment, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I do apologize for my mind was elsewhere. So, any questions for staff? And do we have anybody who wanted to speak on this particular? Okay. I guess we'll bring it up here. I mean, I guess I don't know if call it a question for a comment, but I'll start. It seems that this is primarily housekeeping. So, as such, I didn't see anything that jumped out at me as a red flag. Is there anybody who could say otherwise, or do we want to just move on with this? Okay.
I'll close the public hearing that was never opened and make a motion to accept staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay. I don't think we need any discussion, so I guess I'll call for a vote. All right. So we have done our deed on this particular item, and this will move us to director's comments.
Yes, it will. As I mentioned at our last meeting, the City Council has changed our Planning Commission calendar, and so we'll be switching to one meeting a month, and that will be on the second Thursday of the month. At our next meeting, we'll have a calendar that you can adopt. And so just to let you know, coming out, May 14th and June 11th are our next Planning Commission meetings. If we find ourselves in a situation where we need to have an additional meeting, or we have an applicant that, is being impacted, we can schedule a special meeting. And that's it for tonight.
And to our city attorney?
Nothing this evening.
Okay.
Come out on the left, is that it?
Sure.
Okay.
Age before beauty?
We'll talk later. Very clear reports sent tonight. Staff did a good job. It was very, very clear. The volleyball, I want to take us back. This is when last planning commission, not the last one, but the previous planning commission meeting, where we talked about the recommending to the City Council the zone change and tentative track map for Parkside. What I expressed was this type of a facility across the street and what we might look at as far as land utilization in terms of how it might complement the sports park. And as I looked at the volleyball application, I thought that's just another example of what could go in there to grow the sports aspect within the city in a specific area. So I'm hoping that we can not this board, this panel can't do anything, but I'm hoping the city council can take a look at that and get a different vision other than residential for that piece of property. But I was really happy to see this. I hope this is a very successful operation within our city, and I think that this location where they're at is actually ideal for this operation, the business plan that they have. And I really like that. So with that, no more comment.
Well, I'd like to agree with you that that is a good use for that facility. I like the fact that there's an empty facility, and we're taking a new business and putting there as opposed to creating a new facility and then having maybe 2 empty facilities. So I would disagree with you on that point, that I think we have a lot of empty buildings out there that we can utilize without creating more. And I look at the housing shortage in the state of California, and I still would believe that housing is the best use for that property. And thank you, staff, for great reports.
I think that this was a really good example of taking a commercial space and repurposing it for something that really is beneficial to the community. I hope we see more thinking out of the box solutions like this for our commercial and industrial property, since a lot of our commercial property is being impacted by internet selling. I think that this type of thing really helps to utilize that space better, and I hope we can find more of that used. In fact, I'm not so sure a facility like this wouldn't even work in some of the more of the retail-like space too, depending on the location. But that type of thing where it helps to draw traffic, to different places, and I think maybe that might be something that will happen in the future for certain types of sports. I mean, I think the golf stores have probably done that better than most people right now with the inside golf driving ranges and stuff like that, and the sports stores that do scuba diving training and that sort of thing. It draws people in. It gives them something else to do. So I think if we can keep working on finding more people like that and more things, I think that would be beneficial to us too. Again, I do want to thank the staff. The reports were very well done tonight, and especially one on the housekeeping. That was really well done. I appreciate that. That was a lot of work, and I imagine that took you a long time. It's not very much fun, but that was an excellent job, and I think that was great. I'm glad we were able to bring another business into the city that I think will be productive and beneficial to our residents. And thank you.
I'm going to parrot my fellow commissioners in that staff reports were very well written. I would like to thank Ron, but he's not here. I'd call him out on that. But the extent of work that Jennifer had to do for statutory housekeeping can be a real tedious pain, and to do that as a new mother at such a high quality is rather impressive. So, I mean, as a new father many years ago, I wouldn't have been able to pull that off, I don't think. So, and I didn't do anywhere near as much work as my wife does, and I'm sure she'll agree. But that said, I was very grateful to see this, move as quickly and easily as it did tonight. And while I agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Verplank that this type of facility in the space where Parkside is would be wonderful, I even thought it myself when I saw it. I said, this is what Jerry was thinking about, because if you put this across the street, then they could have their competitions right across the street at the gymnasium. But it's not us you have to convince, it's the landowner. So, but that said, I'm going to go ahead and I do have one quick question. Next week, or next meeting, we will have our scheduled, the rest of our calendar to approve based on the changes. If we just tell City Council no, we're not going to approve it, what happens? We're meeting every 2 weeks whether they like it or not.
Well, actually, they took action at their...
So we can meet, but they won't pay us. So, all right. Well, anyway, thank you so much to all. Tonight was very well prepared, and you said May 11th? May 14th. Thank you. I will adjourn us to our next regularly scheduled meeting on May 14th.